Hello everyone, I hope you all are doing well and staying healthy. Throughout the duration of our studies, I have noticed something that has struck a lot of interest when we consider our everyday lives and the social workings associated. One of the most significant social pressures that we encounter is social conformity, or the tendency for individuals to assign themselves certain traits or characteristics based on the group they are attempting to associate with. Oftentimes, it doesn't even manifest itself as an individual trying to fit in. It could also describe a wide range of social complexes. Social conformity can be used to describe motive when we commit action. It can be used to describe the cultural affiliations of small families or groups. It can even be employed to explain large-scale social developments such as herd relations. A good example would be the toilet paper crisis. Understanding the workings of social conformity can help us understand how to make conscious decisions and realize our own conformities. Because Shakespeare's works deal so heavily with the workings of humanity, one would only expect social conformity to come about in his commentary. The most apparent use of these concepts arises in the main conflicts in all his work. In Dynamics of Organizational Culture, Individual Beliefs versus Social Conformity, Christios Elinas, a professor at University of Bristol, concludes that social links between people severely complicate the social web and thus influence interaction. If we look at social construct in The Tempest, we can see that there are individual social groups that define certain areas of conflict. For example, while interrupting the feast of Alonso, Prospero on the sidelines exclaims, "Honest Lord, thou hast said well, for some of you are present are worse than devils." The phrase represents the social conflict as well as the relationship between Prospero and those who banished him. According to the study I previously mentioned, this is one of the fibers that makes up the social web of social connections. Prospero's actions he takes is to make the men think Ferdinand is dead, thus defining the conflict produced by the social network itself. One must remember that the initial catalyst for the relationship and the conflict is Prospero's drive for dukedom, a function of social conformity. If you really look into this theoretical web, each character's motive for conflict can be traced to social conformity. Each individual is subject to their own mental fabrication through manipulation of personal thought. For myself, I use this concept to explain the lack of sense I perceive in the actions of others. If someone says or does something that I perceive as immoral or downright strange, I remember that social standards drive everyone's thought to a certain extent. The life lesson is that everyone has their social conformities that will clash with that of others, thus creating conflict. Shakespeare's works also deal with the social manipulation brought about by parents and the effects of certain conduct on the thoughts and actions of children. In a study performed by Michael E. Lamb of Cambridge, Attachments, Social Networks, and Developmental Context, he found that behavior of children after departing the household is based mostly on how said child encounters life from a social perspective. In other words, the social groups they encounter later in life will form them into the individual they become. The main idea that the real parent that will be the deciding factor is social conformity itself and not their actual parents. We see this concept manifest itself most greatly in Taming of the Shrew, when Kate surpasses Bianca and other wives in her duties. In this example, Petruchio says, "Catherine, I charge thee, tell these headstrong women what duty they do owe their lords and husbands." Here Kate has socially aligned with the group of individuals that the reader never expected her to. Shakespeare implements this stark contrast from her initial personality to provide magnitude to the effect of social conformity. For me, I find this a concept we deal with growing up and throughout life. We lose friends that try to fit in with the crowd, all the while gaining experience and moving through life with our own conformities. The lesson relating to social conformity here is that it can be both good and bad. It just depends on the context. Lastly, Shakespeare deals quite a bit with the social complex present in human tendency. In a study known as Social Manipulation of Preference in the Human Brain by Kisazuma, it explores the effects of certain social cues on the human brain. The findings point to social conformity being the main driving factor in tendency for individuals to alter their actions and perceptions permanently. We see this with Brutus and Cassius, where Brutus becomes more and more uncomfortable with the morality of his action. On the other hand, he continues on with his action despite the voice telling him it was immoral. I believe this serves as a commentary on all of humanity, somewhat of a call to action for those viewing or reading the play to look into their own social structure. The final lesson relating to social conformity deals with our own perceptions that we must realize we have them. With everything said, social conformity is a concept that touches the lives of every individual. The fact that it is a driving concept in Shakespeare's works is indicative of its value to anyone's academic and personal understanding of themselves and others. I hope everyone finds as much value and utility in such a concept as I do. Thank you.